All right, we're online. We are live. Hello, Joanna.
Hello. Yeah, I'm alive.
As the most astute among you, audience, will have noticed, the project is dead because you're a bunch of fucking morons. But we're going to post another update here with Joanna for sake of completeness because she's actually gone live yesterday with her project. So while all of you were jerking off to fucking anime online, or whatever the fuck you do to waste your time on YouTube, she was actually working hard. I was working hard too. Congratulations to both of us. I was working hard to build her project based on everything that we've discussed. So her project is called mangado.com. No, .jp. Mangado.com is something completely unrelated.
.com, yeah, that's why I took JP, because com was taken already.
All right, it's very colorful though. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's very colorful. Let's go to .jp.
Com is some website, I think they sell manga there or something like that.
All right.
Because it's also for manga, and do like manga building, something like that. That's the meaning, so. My cat is with me, okay.
I thought that was you.
No. I don't make such sounds online, so.
All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
Okay, so basically the point is that I launched on Tuesday. So now I need to focus on marketing. I have few ideas how to do it, but I'm not sure if they are good ideas. And I think I would need to have a better plan about how to do the marketing. Because before I launched, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And now since I started, I feel like I'm not really sure. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Potentially, but what changed?
I mean, first of all, I launched on Tuesday, and although I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, everybody says it's great and awesome, but nobody bought anything yet.
Well, how many people gave you feedback?
Like 20, maybe, something like that.
Do you know what the average conversion rate for digital services is?
I don't know.
Well, if you get one person in 100 to give you money, that's spectacular. If you're getting 1 in 1,000, that's normal. I'm not sure it's entirely correct, but it's sort of correct.
Okay, so basically, I need
very few people that visit your site will pay. So the people that are actually making money online, they have a huge audience.
So actually, that in this way would go to my first question, because what I was thinking, because it might take time until I start getting money anyway, but I was wondering if I should put more content for free on my website than I have now.
All right, so my idea is that you want to have content that's free, but it's not completely free. In other words, you don't want to completely cripple it. You need to make it free and usable, but it's got to get to the point where it's an inconvenience, but it's not a huge inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience, so that if they're really using it and they're learning stuff, and at some point they decide, screw it, I'm going through all this inconvenience just to save how much, like $4, like fuck it, let me just get it. That's the idea. So some people overdo it and they cripple it completely. Like when you go to these news sites, and immediately they have the pop-up blocker saying, no, you have the pop-up, you have the ad block, so you can't come on here. And that's very, it's justified. I'm not saying it's rude, because in the end they put effort to create their content. Nobody's forcing them to give it away for free. But realistically, on the internet, because you're selling information and there's so much of it, that's how it works. You can't just say either pay or you get nothing. It's difficult.
Yeah,
and then some people overdo it the other direction. Some people just make it so easy to just use the content for free that there's no incentive whatsoever to buy it. So you have to find the right compromise to maximize your revenues.
Okay, so because right now I have only 3 samples on my website, but so you think that I should put like at least one whole manga for free completely, so more people would come to my website?
I don't think it should be entirely free. I think that there should be something that you get more when you pay. Otherwise, who's going to pay if it's all free, right?
Okay,
For example, study notes, you know, when you have that, somebody might want to export study notes. So every word that they didn't know, you click it, and at the end, it just creates PDF flashcards that you can just print, something like that. So that, yeah, you can read it for free, but it's much more convenient to actually learn it if you have paid something and gotten the other part.
Okay, I was also thinking about making a YouTube channel that would be connected to my website, but that also would be a lot of work, so I'm not sure if it's worth it. Because I could, for example, make, maybe not language lesson, but I could make some videos about manga and anime and try to make some interviews with manga authors, like this kind of thing. But I'm
So
just wondering
anything that's interesting that people are gonna listen to, and while they're listening to it, there's a link to your site, is valuable.
Okay.
The question is, how much time does it take you, and what are the results, and what other things could you be doing instead of that? And you have to pick the thing that is the best use of your time, marketing-wise.
Yeah, because I was thinking I could just focus my time on creating more manga. So I don't know what is better. And I have also some other ideas. I thought about making physical content, like some printable mangas. That because in this way I could promote myself in some Japanese connected event, but that would be only in Warsaw.
Well, giving free content is one way of advertising. So if you don't even have one complete manga online, I think you have to build your content base, because who's going to pay to not even get one complete manga?
I mean, no, I have few complete mangas on the website, so that's okay. But they're short mangas, so I have one that have 40 pages, one that have 26, and 2 that have 8 pages each. And one manga I have 10 pages, but it's not full of that. So.
So the hard
because
work
they're short anyway, now. So they are full online.
The hard work starts now. What you have online is a prototype. If you were looking for money for an investment fund, you could use what you have and go ahead and get money. That's how everybody does it. Because if you had the money, you could pay people to translate other mangas. And if you had money, you could buy ads, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to get investment money, or do you want to build it all by yourself?
I mean, my idea is to build that all by myself, but I don't want to spend, another 1 year till I start earning any money. Because if I was to get investment, I was talking with you, like if I wanted to ask somebody for a sponsor to give me some money, it would. If you ask too few, they will not take you seriously. But if I was asked to ask somebody to give me like 1 million, I have no idea how to plan that. Like on what could I spend that?
Well, you could rent offices. You could pay yourself a decent salary. You could hire at least a couple of Japanese people. That's entirely justifiable. You're teaching Japanese online, so you get a couple of native speakers. Then you could hire 1 or 2 programmers to increase the value of the site. Then you could get some people who are experienced with the manga world in general that could do the outreach and you already have 5, 7 people plus offices, I think 1 million could last you easily 1 or 2 years. And yeah, so if you need help spending money, just ask me. You could also buy me a Porsche for my consulting.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to ask if you go to an investor and you say, please give me $1,000, they'll laugh in your face, right? Because they want to know you're going to expand. So, but what do you think about getting money? I think it might be a good idea. I mean, if you're going to build this all by yourself, it does take an inordinate amount of time. Even just the translations take time, and the marketing takes time. How much time did you spend until now?
A bit over 1 year. So.
Okay, well, that's just the fact that you're able to do one thing for 1 year without seeing the result is going to qualify you in the eyes of investors, because most people go there and they say, I have a great idea, give me money. Instead, you say, I had a great idea, and here it is. And you know how much money I spent to make it? I don't know, like $200. Now, if you give me $1 million, imagine what I could do.
Okay, so yeah, actually you gave me completely new idea, because what I was planning to do initially was to focus on marketing by myself, but I'm afraid it could take, I could do it and do and do and do, and I would never make a living from that, or even earn decent money. Because I thought, how can I promote myself? I can write in forums, I can contact some language schools and so on. I can create physical content and take part in some events. I can have a YouTube channel. I can have Twitter also. But also it might be not enough.
Well, it depends how much money you want to make. So right now the cost to subscribe is how much?
It's 20 zlotys per month.
20 zlotys, $5 US, yes?
Yeah.
Or €5, something like that. €5 per month. And how much money do you need to make per month to at least not have to find a job, which is, I guess, for people is the number one thing, right? Because if you can get to the point where you don't need to get a job and you can eat and you can live off of it, then your risk that you have to quit and you lost your effort that you put in to make the site becomes zero. So, because if you give it enough time, like, I mean, even if it takes you the next 10 years to make it, you're not wasting the time. In the end, you'll do it. It's just a matter of time. So to become what I call unkillable, because startups, they get killed. By the way, that's one of the risks when you get money from investors, is that, like, for example, if you do it as I said, which is to hire 7 people, get the offices, right? And you spend that $1 million that they gave you, the next year you need another $1 million. So you better be able to show something, and now you depend on them. Because if they don't give you another $1 million, you're done. You're bankrupt. You can't pay those people without their money. So that's something to think about very carefully.
I mean, minimum just to make a living, so I don't need to do other work, it's 2,000 zlotys per month. It's enough. So it's like $500. It's not a lot. I mean, Poland is not.
It's 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 paying customers.
Yeah, actually. I would need to find 1,000 people.
I don't want to shoot a wrong number, but I'll shoot 1 million. I'll shoot that you need to get 1 million users to get 1,000 that are actually paying. But let me just look it up so I'm not. Model conversion rate. Here I'm looking at more hopeful numbers as being 3 to 5%. Free trial conversion rate is 10 to 20%. Freemium 3.5 is the best practice. I guess one question you need to ask yourself is, do you think that the people that are going to pay you for the first month are going to buy again the second month? In other words, how serious are they? You don't know because you don't have any users yet, but just if you try to imagine, right? Do you think that your prototypical a client is going to be mostly interested in the novelty, or is going to be more interested in learning Japanese. I mean, this is why I think it's good to get people that are mostly interested in the manga, as opposed to people that are mostly interested in learning Japanese. Because as long as they're interested in the manga, there's always more content that they're going to want to read. Whereas if they're just interested in learning the language, very few people are serious when they learn the language. Most people give up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Regardless, you would have to put out continuously new material for them to stay active, which is not a problem if you're making money out of it. But the point is, how many mangas can you create all by yourself every month? Can you translate and put online?
I could repeat, because it was how many manga can I?
How many mangas can you add to the site every month?
Depends how much time I have.
Well, imagine you're doing it full time.
If I do it full time, so like three per month.
3 per month. Okay.
3, 4, yeah, something like that. Depends how long, but 3, 4.
So you could potentially do this all by yourself, but as somebody who, see, I don't like to work with other people, and also I'm doing something where I can't hire anybody to help me. And I can tell you, just to do everything by yourself like this, I don't even know if it's worth it. If I could start over, I'd pick something much simpler, get somebody's money. Anyway, it's full of money out there, just looking for a business to be put in. But so I was just trying to calculate, if you need 1,000 paying users, how many actual users do you need to get? See, these are things that they're very specific to what you're doing. So you can't really get figures from the internet, but there are many users. For each one that pays, there's so many that don't pay. So main point is your work starts now. The site is nothing compared to getting people to pay you for it.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I mean, before just this idea to look for an investor was kind of a scary idea. So now, I mean, idea of, I know maybe I will do it maybe, but the idea to.
Well, I'm not suggesting that you do it. I'm just trying to talk with you about the pros and cons so that you can find out for yourself. I'm not suggesting that you do it. I'm just putting out the idea so that you can consider it and decide. And I'm being very transparent about pros and cons. So then you have to decide. But why is it scary?
I know that first of all, like it's a huge responsibility, and then the thought what I would do with this money. So so first of all, I need to make a plan. Yes, how, if I get 1 million, on what would I spend this 1 million? So that's the thing I need to do first.
Well, you don't need to ask 1 million. You could ask 100,000. It really depends who you talk to. Like if you talk with VCs in Silicon Valley, if you ask for 1 million, they'll laugh in your face. They want to come in with at least like $10 million, 20, 30. But if you talk to, for example, one of your sponsors could be a publishing house. What if you find some publishing house that does manga and they think it's a good idea and they were to give you some money? Now, they're not professional investors. They're not investing in 100 companies. They don't need to get a return of 1,000,000% to break even. And they might just think, this, in the worst case, this is going to be advertisement for our mangas and it doesn't cost us very much. And so they could give you money and they could also give you connections. So you could offer them a part of the business in exchange for the resources that you need first of all, get somebody else to make these mangas for you, because you don't want to be a translator for a living, right? You want to be a business owner. As a business owner, your day-to-day work is very different from a translator. The fact that you were able to put the prototype together by yourself is great, because it qualifies you in the eyes of the investors, and also makes it a lot easier to go forward. And you're not already indebted. Plus, the more stuff you have when you get the money, and the less control over the company you have to give to get that money. So now that you have a prototype, somebody might offer you, just as an example, I don't know, take $100,000 and maybe we get 20% of the business. Whereas if you just go there with the idea, maybe they want 50% to give you less money. So the more you can go ahead by yourself before you get the money, the better. Of course, that has to be balanced against the opportunity cost and the slowdown that you suffer as a result. But what you would use the money for, I already gave you a few examples. You would get somebody else to do the work that you're doing now, translating, updating the website. And your marketing strategy, I don't believe in marketing with money, because to market using only money really takes huge capital. But you can have creative ideas, and then instead of you executing those ideas, you can get somebody else to execute them. For example, you're saying you could make a YouTube channel. Well, great. You can pay somebody to come out with interviews. You can hire somebody in Japan to go to places and interview these manga artists and send you the video with the interview, for example, instead of you doing everything. Just some ideas. And as far as the responsibility is concerned, you don't need to have any, because this is not like you don't pay your phone bill and then people want to look for you to kill you. Almost all businesses that raise money die. So when people give you the money, they're already calculating that. And they're thinking, okay, I need to get enough shares of this company or enough stock so that if it fails, it will have been worth the risk. So, professional investors, they will give you a few millions, but they want 20, 30% or whatever, sometimes even more. And they do that with a bunch of companies. Now, the trick is to break even. The only way they can do that, with the uncertainty as to whether each individual business will succeed, the only way to break even is that one business that works needs to become really, really huge. So there's some businesses that cannot raise money from VCs. And I don't know if something that allows to learn Japanese belongs to the category. For sure, it's not like for example, Facebook or YouTube, which could potentially expand to have hundreds of millions of users. But it could have millions of users for sure. So about the responsibility, you don't really need to worry about it. If you lose their money, it's their fucking problem. They're getting paid to take the risk if you succeed. And you wouldn't give more than 50% of the company, so all the control remains with you. You can do whatever you want. Of course, you have to keep them happy, because otherwise next year they won't give you enough money again. So normally they don't give you a bunch of money and then say, okay, now I'll see you when you're profitable. But they give you a chunk, and then you go back to them after you can show them something. So perhaps you could ask for very little in the beginning. You could say, all I want to do is get the first 100 users. But this happens in the negotiations. So you can start by getting a meeting. You don't need to tell them how much money you want when you get a meeting. You have to talk about how much money they're going to make, not how much money you want. So you give them some statistics, some projections. You show that there are a lot of people that are learning Japanese, and you show that the intersection between learning Japanese and reading mangas, both of which are very big niches, they're not. There's a vacuum, and that you're in it. And am I giving you too much information, or did you already know all this stuff? Or
No. You're giving me new information. It's a very valuable information.
Right. So how to talk with investors is like a totally different sector. But first you have to decide what you're more comfortable with. If you decide to raise money, work becomes easier because you can delegate to other people. But then your main problem becomes raising money, which is really the main job of an entrepreneur. It's to have the idea and then sell the idea. And that's the reason you need to like what you're doing, because it becomes easy to sell the idea. At least if they listen, and if your business model is investor friendly. And then people are just going to do whatever you tell them to do because you're paying them. You tell them, you can call them bitches. Go and make me a fucking video if you want the money. Otherwise, you starve to death, you piece of shit. If you don't do it, if you're not paying people, like I generally don't pay people, or I pay them very little because I'm using my money. So I always have to beg. Like, please, can you make this electrode? Then they fuck it up. I can't even complain, because if I complain, they just block me. But if you're paying the money, you have some leverage, so your life is much easier. But then you have to beg only one person, which is your investors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ideal investors would be people that are already in that niche. So, like manga publishing houses, you find one that's like low technology, where they couldn't do it by themselves, and they're already in that business, and they think, okay, this is sort of what we're doing already, and we were already perhaps thinking about doing something on the internet, but we're just old and decrepit as a company, and we don't have any talent. We can't afford IT staff, to hire a competent IT person, or like, let's say, to make your site to the point where it's developed right now to a company would probably cost at least $30,000-$40,000.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering what would be the cost of this website if I paid somebody normally.
Well, if you personally looked for a developer to make it for you, and I don't know, it really depends on your skill to negotiate a price and how much time you want to waste with the bugs, because you can get it done in India for a few $1,000s, I think. But then it's going to be full of bugs. Then you have to go back and forth, back and forth. A lot of people that try to save money that way end up saying, fuck Indians, and let me just properly pay more money, but do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And the value of the translated manga, I really cannot estimate very well. But it's a much more clear-cut case when you say it's a company doing it, meaning in-house. So if the price to get this done, if you're a lonely entrepreneur and a freelancer and you're spending your savings, could be anywhere between, I don't know, a couple of $1,000s to maybe 10,000. But for a company to hire the people to make it, it's much more difficult, because it's going to be at least 3-4 people. One is going to do the translation, then there's going to be a secretary to scan the manga, then they need to have some management, and they need to waste money in meetings. So before this is all over, I think it would cost them $30,000-$40,000. At least the way I've seen Japanese companies operate. Plus in Japan, the salaries are even higher. So, and you have to think, how much time does it take for them to look for the staff? And how much do they have to pay to the headhunters? Because when you hire somebody through headhunters, the headhunter takes a percentage of the salary. So if you're somebody that's getting paid 10 grand a month, the headhunter could make $2,000, $3,000 every month on top of that. So if you were to approach one of these publishing houses that don't have low-tech staff, they might see it as an easy way to diversify their business and enter the IT space, but still remain within their core business. And in that case, if you ask them, if you give me $10,000, I'll give you whatever percent, they might be very easy to deal with compared with looking for venture capitalists. And they might also offer more than money. They might offer connections. They might say, okay, you need to do interviews from manga artists. Here we have a list of 100 that already work for us. You can interview them for free. Makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Or you might decide, fuck investors, I just want to do it by myself. It's just tons and tons of work now to get people to come, because very few are going to pay. Now, if you have investors, generally, you can pay yourself a salary. I actually got into an argument in Japan about this, because it seems that in Japan, when you get investment, you don't pay yourself a salary because you want to show that you're using your money. However, from the point of view of an investor, if they're intelligent, they don't want you working at McDonald's and making the site 2 hours a day. They want you working on it full time. So if it costs them nothing, you said like what, 4,000 zloty to live per month, or 2,000, something like that. That's a zero cost, considering that you have to be on the business for them to make money off of it. So for you to pay you that little a salary from the investment capital that you receive, I think is totally not a problem. Plus, considering that you're young and considering that you live in Poland, all of these things. So if you get investors, you might have a salary already at the beginning, which makes it much more relaxing. You're doing some other work now, right? Aren't you doing some other part-time work?
Yeah, I do.
Right. So you can't do this full time, actually. It took you a year. Okay. So that's why it took you a year, yes? Because you're doing other stuff. So if you had investments from somebody, you could do it full time and not have to do part-time jobs. So in your case, it seems that getting some capital from somebody would be a good idea. But you have some responsibility. I mean, it's not a lot of responsibility, because if you lose the money, it's not like they're going to kill you. It's normal for businesses to lose money. Most of them do. So it's not like in fact, if you fail,
yes.
If you fail, the next time it will be easier to get money, even though you failed. Next time you do another business and you tell them, hey, I failed. And you're like, oh, great. Now you know how to fail. Maybe the second time you don't fail the same way.
Yeah.
But if you work alone, it's also easier, because you can you don't have responsibility towards anyone. You can just make your own decisions. Nobody tells you anything. So I guess your strategy going forward depends on whether you want to do it all by yourself or find partners. That's another idea, but it's very difficult to find partners, because if they're not getting paid, they're going to quit. I think you already saw that, right?
Yeah, and I don't really want to have a partner, because I have some my own visions, some my own ideas, and I don't think I would be able to cooperate with somebody on that. To have somebody who would have the same decisive power as me. It's like,
well, a partner doesn't need to have the same deciding power, depending on how you see. If you're a very, very serious company, like, and especially if you've got investors, the decisions are made in such a way that, well, it all eventually ends up being about understanding each other, because you can't really base it on. I mean, you've got vesting options, vesting schedules for stock options, and the people that have less stock don't really get to make the decisions, but you need to still work it out on a friendly basis, because if there's no goodwill, there's no way that you're going to be able to be cohesive and accomplish anything. But I don't believe that there are halfway people in the world. There are entrepreneurs and there are slaves. That's it. There's nobody in between. If somebody's an entrepreneur, they're probably already doing something, and if they're a slave, then they need to be paid or they're going to quit. So partners is a possibility, but I think it's the toughest of all.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the toughest because it doesn't really depend on you anymore. It depends on somebody else, so you can control it.
Yeah, and I cannot think about anybody who would be a good partner for me. And I just don't want to find some person I don't know personally to have some rights in this project, yes.
Okay, so good. So you only have two options. Either you do it by yourself, in which case what you need to do now is begin to really bust your ass with marketing and expect that if you get like 3% people signing up, it's already a lot. But you sort of have two jobs, because you have to do the marketing and also you have to keep the mangas increasing. Because if I sign up this month and next month there's nothing new and I see my PayPal get charged again, I'll say, hey, what did I get this month for this money to go out? Let me just unsubscribe. So are you able by yourself to do this double work of A, advertising, while still you're not making any money, and B, continuing to add new mangas? Is that even a possibility if you work very hard?
I think it would be not enough. Yeah.
All right, then you need some money.
Because anyway, it's not also the point of time. The way I'm working on preparing, applying this like background explanation on manga is something which is not very hard to do if I know Japanese, but it's something that I cannot do a few hours per day. It's this kind of work that you need to have breaks. You just cannot sit on that whole day and do it. So.
Okay.
So it would be better to have somebody else also do it.
Okay. Yeah, so get some money.
Yeah, but I need to digest all of the information you gave me, and I need to think about it. But I have also like one more question. Because even if I'm going to look for a sponsor or an investor a bit later, there's a small problem that we discussed about whether I should worry if somebody can copy me or not. So, for example, if a while before I look for investor, I would try to move forward by myself a bit, like do the marketing. There is no way. I mean, I need to market as much as I can. Yes, I cannot just worry that somebody can copy me.
Well, yeah, for sure. You don't want to keep it secret for fear that they copy you, because if you keep it secret, then nobody's going to come on it and use it. So you can't do that.
Yeah, but.
Well, now you're discovering that it's a lot of work, right? So to copy it, it's not enough that they say, okay, I want to copy it. They have to bust their ass. So fortunately for you, very few people are willing to bust their ass. And if somebody, let's say who's going to copy you? Is it like a guy, like a random person just by themselves? Very unlikely. Is it a company? Okay, well, if it's a company and they want to copy you, why not just give you some money since you're already doing it and get a part of the business? For them, it's much more convenient. Do you ever see like when Google buys companies and you read articles? Google bought YouTube for $4 billion. Why do they have to spend all that fucking money just for a website, right? But to them, that money is nothing. It's literally nothing. And they much prefer they're buying the people, basically. Because putting together the people and the organization is very difficult. So that's why I'm saying, if you get some investment, then your next problem is recruiting these people and finding them. And they have to work for you and they have to be reliable. At that point, it's hard to copy because you can't just copy the site. Yeah, you can copy the site, and then who's going to make your content? But to create the same machine that makes the site, creates the new content, does the support when people's payment doesn't go through, whatever, requires all the effort that you put in now. So you're creating a barrier to entry when you have a team. That's why big companies, they buy smaller companies, because they buy the team, and it's much cheaper to buy it than to create the team of people that can actually work together. They're used to each other. They know how to talk to each other. Before they learn to communicate with each other and to be efficient together as a team, it takes months or years. And in those months or years, you can lose a market. And that's why big companies sometimes buy small companies for an enormous amount of money. So now you don't need an enormous amount of money, you just need a little bit of money. So if you make it easier for anybody who wants to own this to become an investor than to make it by themselves, then you win. You can have a page saying partners, investors, where if they like it, they can click on it. And instead of copying you, they just join.
Because what I was worried about is that, I mean, if right now I just make it more popular on forums without having money yet, somebody who has more money can do it faster than me.
Can do it faster than you? Well, it depends if that's the only thing that they do and if that's really what they want to do, but most likely it's not. Otherwise, they would be doing it. Usually people try to copy things when they're very successful. Like, for example, take China. They copy everything, right? They're copying iPhones. They're copying Gucci. Why are they copying these things? Because they're making tons of money. So if somebody has money, but they have no ideas, which is rare, because usually even idiots have ideas, and very few people have the money. But let's say they have the money and they have no ideas. And even then, they're exposed to new ideas all day on the internet. but then somehow they magically see your site and they say, oh, that's the right idea for me. That's what I needed. I had the money, but I just needed the idea. You know, see, it's not very realistic because you're not filthy rich yet. If this thing was making billions, then you would really worry about everybody's looking at you. You have articles on Times Magazine saying, oh, this is like the new YouTube is Mangado. And then everybody would say, fuck, I better be doing Mangado now instead of copying iPhones.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I was wondering, so in what case can copying somebody being copied be a threat? Let's say not my situation, but try to create like imaginary situation. In what situation it would be somebody could be afraid that.
Let me see if I can rephrase your question. You're asking when should you be worried about somebody copying you, right? Is that the question?
That also, but I mean, but from the thing you're saying, it seems like there is no way there could be a situation when somebody can copy somebody.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because you have to differentiate. If I find a way, for example, I was looking yesterday, the way you make mirrors. You take two substances, I think it was ammonium nitrate or something like that, you mix them in water, then you put them on a slab of glass and you like magic and makes a mirror. And nobody knew that. And you discover that. You're in very high danger of somebody copying you. In that case, you need to go and get a patent. You shouldn't even have a website, you should get a patent. So when the idea, if you know the idea, you obtain all the value of a process. That's when you need to be worried. On the other hand, when the idea is not like new physics, it's not like a new technology, then if you just had the idea, then you can get benefit. When most of what you're doing is hard work, then they can't copy your hard work without putting in the hard work. So I think what you have here is 3% idea and 97% work, at least as far as I see it. So even if they copy the idea, well, good luck, go and do the work now. And the other thing, you could have like a submit your manga place. So let's say somebody's making mangas and they think, oh, that's a good idea. I would like to make my manga the same way. They don't have to copy your site to do it. They can just sell you the already annotated manga and you're going to put it online and maybe they get a percentage of your revenues. I'm not sure how important this is, but it's just an idea to say, okay, there's a guy that really wants to copy you that's an artist, and this way you remove all the motivation behind making a site like yours, and instead they become your partners. So basically, to make the answer very short, whenever there's a lot of work involved, then the threat of competitors is not that great.
Yeah, I understood. Yes, so I don't have more questions now.
There's another issue that is, okay, so imagine that there's a competitor already, and imagine that now there's mangado.jp and there's, let's say, mangado.com. Now, the market is much bigger than your user base because your user base is 0. And let's say their user base is also 0, or it's, I don't know, 10,000 users. At this point, what really matters is how many customers can you get. If the number of customers that you can get is limited by the fact that you have a competitor, then of course it's not good to have a competitor because it's eating into your profits. But the moment that marketing costs money, it costs effort, and you don't have enough money, you don't have enough effort. Now you're in the situation of, let's say, 2 mice, and there's a big block of cheese, and the speed at which they can eat the cheese is very, very slow. So it doesn't matter that there's another mouse, because anyway, you can't eat it all by yourself. Your main limitation is your mouth, not the other mouse. Make sense? You want me to say it again?
Hello?
I'm saying your ability to get customers is limited very, very heavily right now by your budget and your personal time, okay?
Yes.
If you had a competitor, they wouldn't matter, because anyway, the number of customers that you can get is so small due to your capital and your available time. It might matter 10 years from now, but right now it doesn't matter. So you're like a small mouse with a tiny mouth trying to eat a big block of cheese. So if there's another mouse somewhere else, it doesn't affect you because your mouth is so small. Your ability to get to the market is still non-existent. And it's going to be non-existent for the foreseeable future unless somebody drops you several $1 million and you start with full-blown campaign, 10 YouTube channels, advertisement all over the internet, on magazines, on, what's the exchange student programs, like all the universities. Like one cheap way of advertising that I think is you could make small leaflets and you could go to this website. It's called Fiverr.com with 2 R's. And there's people doing stuff for $5. Just find some students in all the universities in the world, tell them, go to your Japanese department and drop this flyer. Very effective, cost them nothing to do, and you would be reaching thousands of people. In fact, I think this is a good idea. You should really start and do that, first of all. Are you processing?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I need some time to, I understood what you said, but I need some time to put everything in order in my brain. Yes.
Okay, no problem. Take your time.
It was a lot of information. And I think it's enough of information for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Shall we close it here then?
Yeah, we finish.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.